Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat basketball channel. My name is Amir. I'm joined again by my favorite guest, and basically the only guest I've ever had on this channel. We're back with Vonnie, aka Diddles Magoo. What's up, man?
What's up, buddy?
Not much, not much. Just almost the weekend, so excited for that. How about you?
Same. Excited, man. Ready to not be at work.
Right, exactly. Kids are asleep, so kids are not home for you apparently. So, um, baby's asleep. So happy to talk some hoops with you. We always lose track of time typically when we do this, especially on our old channel that is still active, but we don't make any more videos on that. Maybe we should bring that back. Ball does lie. I changed the name of it, but we still have that. We can always talk about general basketball, even though this is a Miami Heat basketball channel. Still a basketball fan and kind of like the opportunity to talk about just other NBA topics. If we could tie it to Miami Heat, we shall. So before we get into the video today, just want to thank everybody for watching the videos and subscribing to the channel. For today's video, I want to talk about James Harden. And again, also going to mostly try to tie a lot of these videos when I have Vonning on here to a former Houston Rockets player because that's his favorite team, as you guys can see. So James Bernard Gerald Harden. I hate that dude. Vonning knows I hate him. He gets upset because I'm his friend, and I probably should support him because that's your second favorite player, I think, right after Charles Barkley of all time. And I just hate the dude. Like my least favorite current player, not the player that I hate the most of all time, but just not a fan of the dude. The guy has been requesting a trade. It seems like every Tuesday. Um, just hopping from team to team of late, and obviously has requested a
Mm.
trade again, right? Um, we don't. We can talk about just James Harden in general, but what are your thoughts on James Harden requesting yet another trade after what 1.5 seasons, 2 seasons with the Sixers?
Yep. Let me preface this by saying, obviously, yes, James Harden, you are correct, is my second favorite player all time behind Charles Barkley. But I would say over the last couple of years, definitely much more of a realist. Still love him. Still love the Harden Houston Rockets era. But I definitely feel like post Houston, he has diminished a bit of his credibility and resume. Um, Going to the Brooklyn Nets, having the trio of him, Durant, and Kyrie was pretty awesome. And I still, even though people would classify it as, a failure, if Durant's foot was 1 inch smaller and he hits that game-winning three instead of a two,
Yeah, against
I
the
think the narrative completely changes. I think they win the title, and then all of a sudden, it's just completely different story. But that's just how close the game of basketball is sometimes. Um, I do ultimately think that everybody probably had a stake in the failure of the Nets and that band breaking up, but I would say the biggest piece of that pie belongs to Kyrie Irving and his all the whole anti-vax and not playing and all that crap that was going on. So, but then Harden requests a trade. He goes to the Sixers. He basically ultimately finagles his way to getting back under Daryl Morey's leadership again, where he basically gave him the keys to the castle when he was in Houston. Now he gets to play with MVP candidate and now current MVP Joel Embiid. So you're thinking like, okay, he got what he wanted again, and he's on a successful team. And Harden, he balled out. I mean, he led the league in assists. I mean, he had a really good year. Statistically, somehow didn't make the All-Star team, which is just insane to me. And then even during the playoffs, when Embiid's out, they sweep in the first round. Harden flat out, I think, wins them games 1 and 4 just because, I mean, he hits a game winner in the first game.
were they
Game
playing,
three, what's that?
were they playing again?
Celtics. So he hits a game-winning three in the first game. In game 4, he hits the shot to send it to overtime, and then he hits another game winner in overtime of game 4. So, I mean, 2 games that he just completely basically won himself against the Celtics, and then they're up 3-2 and they choke the series away. Um, they and then now here we are. He thinks he made some concessions to basically last season when he took a smaller deal to basically be able to bring PJ Tucker,
Yep.
Montrezl Harrell, Daniel House, and basically round out the roster for some better bench depth. And I think he thought going into this offseason, he had two things. He wanted to leverage the Houston Rockets and the fact that he thought, like, hey, the Rockets were interested. I think the narrative during the season was that, hey, the Rockets did want him. I wasn't completely opposed to the idea maybe 6 to 8 months ago. Um, and so I think he was going to use that as leverage with negotiating his next Sixers deal. The Sixers then really don't make a lot of noise. And this part I actually kind of believe too. If you remember last year when Harden took that pay cut, part of all the wheeling and dealings that happened prior to the signings, it was before free agency was official. So the Daryl Morey and the Sixers organization got in trouble. They got fined. They gave up draft picks because they were found guilty basically of talking to PJ Tucker and having all this stuff set up prior to, right?
Hmm.
So I think Harden felt slighted because he didn't hear anything prior to, but Daryl Morey comes out and says, "No, well, I couldn't because we got in trouble for it last year." So he was basically trying to say that, hey, it's not that we weren't interested; it wasn't free agency hadn't started and we couldn't start negotiating yet. So here we are now, where there is uh, tension and animosity in terms of, okay, his feelings are hurt, but also like Harden completely lost his back pocket pick of the Rockets because in comes Ime, and Ime wants nothing to do with Harden. And I think that's ultimately the right decision because at this point in his career, Harden is not worth a max deal of close to $200 million into his age, I don't know, 38, 39 season. And his style of play is not conducive for a rebuild where you've got a bunch of young players that need to have the ball in their hands and be able to develop, um, and learn how to play basketball. Harden is good, but Harden is good the way that he knows how to play, which is him having the ball in his hands, penetrating, flopping around, kicking it out to the 3-point shooter, drawing contact. And for a team like the Rockets, where they had a bunch of 20-year-olds, that's not going to do anybody good. And Jalen Green went ahead and said basically that such in his podcast with Paul George when he was asked about, hey, how is that going to work? And he said, kind of gave a really neutral 50-50 answer and didn't really endorse it. And I think the rumors about that were as well was that Harden was kind of upset at that comment that Jalen Green didn't outright endorse Harden coming. So here
Yep.
we are. He's basically demanded a trade now to the Clippers, where he wants to reunite with Russell Westbrook again, and then be with Kawhi, Paul George. I think it's completely odd. I mean, Kawhi barely plays. Paul George gets hurt. Russell Westbrook is, at the very tail end of his career. Thank God he found a place with the Clippers where he could be happy and actually contribute, because obviously with the whole Lakers stint, it looked like he was about to be out of the league again or be retired or be sent that way. But I don't think Harden's going to move the needle for that team. And I think I think the best case scenario for him is to actually stay on the Sixers and figure it out and be with Embiid. They were actually pretty close. I mean, like I said, they choked. They should have beat the Celtics, and who knows what that Eastern Conference Final looks like with the Sixers and the Heat rather than the Celtics and the Heat. But if his priority is winning, then it should be with the Sixers. If his priority is to get paid, I think he's done. I mean, I don't know what team is going to go out there and give him a max deal. Like it's not going to happen. I just, it's not going to happen. So
Yeah.
got to
To
accept
unpack, to unpack some of that, if it was the Heat, Sixers, in the uh, Eastern Conference Finals, that shit definitely would have been gone. Would have not gone to 7 games. That would have been Heat in 5. Trust the process of the Miami Heat destroying them. So
it.
just
Hey,
kidding. I mean, I'm biased, but I would have. I was rooting for the Sixers to win and was upset that Boston came back and actually won that series because I'd rather have played the Sixers again, right? Like I didn't want to have to deal with the double J's, the two J's. And Malcolm Brogdon was pretty good. Like he was pretty good for the in the regular season, and like he tore something, I think a ligament in his elbow or wrist or something, right? So like he didn't really make an impact with the Heat, right, in the Heat series, excuse me. So I wanted the Sixers to make it selfishly, and I think the Heat would have beat them still, biasedly, but um, have the Sixers in just Joel Embiid's tenure, had they even made it to the Eastern Conference Finals? I'm not sure of that answer. I feel like it's no, right? Definitely did not make it the last 2 years with Harden. So have they made it
Well,
that far?
yeah, wasn't the Kawhi hitting that shot with the Raptors the Eastern Conference Finals when Jimmy was on the team still?
I
Yeah,
don't know if that was the second round or the conference final, was it?
I think that was the conference final.
So they've only made it once in his tenure.
Correct.
Interesting. Yeah, going back to what you said too, also like just a tangent. So because I didn't watch the podcast, I see Paul George. Jesus Christ, I was almost going to say Paul Pierce. Paul George has a podcast. You said he interviewed Jalen Green.
Yep.
How was that? Did they talk about Fresno at all?
Yeah, yeah, they did. They mentioned Memorial, and then they were. He has a couple of other. Paul George has two of his buddies that are on that podcast too, so they were kind of laughing about Fresno. But then Paul George shouted out Doghouse Grill.
Did he?
Yeah, he shouts out Doghouse. And then but Jalen talks about basically his transition from getting out of Memorial and that he needed to basically be around better competition. He says flat out, he's like, if I stayed at Memorial, I think he said he'd like average like 50, 60 points a game. So he ends up transferring and then goes to G League, but it's pretty cool, man. Obviously both, Fresno ties. So it was a good episode. Paul George's podcast is definitely probably my favorite basketball podcast.
Oh, he's a good podcast
Yeah,
host.
yeah, it's good.
I've seen clips, but like on YouTube, I've only seen like 1 to 3 minute clips. I haven't watched one, so maybe I need to. I mean, I have his jersey right behind me, right there, Fresno State. So, and also speaking of Memorial guys, Lopez twins. So Vonnie and I are from Fresno. Yes, I'm a Miami Heat fan from California. Die hard. Vonnie can attest, right? Vonnie
Die Hard.
remembers coming over watching Miami Heat. I think it was on my birthday. Vonnie came over. We had, I mean, Vonnie among most of my friends were there for my birthday party. Vonnie and I were the only ones in the house watching. I think it was the Heat versus the Hornets. They had like Aaron
Jamal
Davis, David
Jamal
Wesley, right?
Jamal
Yeah,
Mash, baby, Monster Mash.
right. We are like 14 years old or something, like
Yeah,
14 years ago. Jesus Christ, or more than that. Geez, 14 years ago. Yeah, I wish it was 14 years ago.
25 years ago.
Yeah, um, insane. But either way, going back to Memorial though, the Lopez twins, um, from Fresno. Their mom was my math teacher actually at high school at Clovis West, where we went. So I'm going off on this tangent, Monty, because I want the audience to hear about a story, and so you could validate this. So it was a hot summer day in Fresno, California. We're playing at a place called the Cage. Um,
Shepherd, and Maple.
Shepherd and Maple, one court, super hot, dog days of summer. It's only one court, super competitive. Like it's like in the white preppy suburban area, but like all sorts of people came over there, right? To play. And usually 30 people would be there on one court, right? Like sometimes I've seen like 40, 50 people. It's like insane. There's like a minimum of like 25, 30 people always out there. So like if you lose, it's over. You're going home, right? Like it's like a 3, 4, 5 game wait. And so we were playing during the summertime, and this was when the Lopez twins were at Stanford, I believe. I think they were like freshman or sophomore year, or are they going into the no?
I
They were
I
at Stanford. I'll tell you why, but what do you think?
I I I remember them. I think they were about to go to Stanford.
So you think
I
they're
thought
18?
I thought it was like their senior year at Memorial. I thought we were like freshmen in college.
I don't remember honestly, but I thought either way, the year they were going to Stanford, or it was their freshman year and they were back for the summer, right? School's over. Either way, they were at least 18 years old, maybe 19. They left Stanford what when they were 20, right, and joined the NBA. So they played 2 seasons there. Either way, the Lopez twins show up, and these freaking assholes, they're obviously very great guys. I don't think they're assholes. Um,
They're
have
like they're the nicest guys, man.
the nicest, nerdiest dudes. Like screw Brooke because he's been on the Bucks, and we've had this little rivalry. But
Robin just signed there too, which I think, hey, as a Rockets fan, Brooke, bro, you burned us. Plus, I feel like the Bucks told Brooke, hey, come back, we'll sign your brother too, because Robin got signed.
did he
So
recently?
yeah, just like literally right after they signed Brooke, I'm telling you, I guarantee that was a negotiating tactic. They probably said, hey, we'll pay you, come back, we'll sign your brother too. So now they're back both on the Bucks.
Do you
Which
think they'll?
I don't, I get it, but
Yeah.
my feelings are hurt.
Do you think the Bucks are going to re-sign free agent? How do you? I don't know. What's Giannis's brother's name?
No,
Thanasis,
if they have a roster spot, they will. I'm actually surprised that he's a free agent. Yeah, Thanasis.
right? That should be a negotiation tactic too. For
Yeah, the sad thing is he has two brothers, so they got to all three of them would take up 3 roster spots.
I know that'd be funny. But anyway, so Lopez twins, they decided to show up and they're playing on the same team. I'm like, okay, you guys are just gonna be horsing around, like not caring. Because like if you wanted to be competitive, you would have played opposite with each other, right, and guarded each other every game, basically. And I'm sure every team gladly would have dropped one scrub to add a Brook or Robin on their team, right, and let them play basically every game against each other. But no, the two 7-footers were on the same team, just like not trying, honestly, but still dominating. Like still, like a lot of they were shooting threes before they were able to really shoot threes, right? Like they
Yeah,
were just like taking threes, hitting shots, like shooting like turnaround jumpers, like dicking around. Like they could have backed down every single person.
yeah,
Like the tallest person out there probably was like 6'4", maybe 6'5", right? Like 200 pounds. Like these guys were like 7 foot. They probably weren't like really strong at that point, like, but still probably 230, 240, right?
yeah,
Maybe, maybe a little less, but either way, it was my team's turn to play, and one of the Lopez twins, I'm going to say Brooke because he's obviously the better one, was guarding me the whole time. And we had a really close game. I'm old. This was a long time ago. I think I was probably 20 years old or so, right? We're only a couple years older than them, or 22 years old maybe. So this was still like 16, 17 years ago when we were playing out there, I guess, depending on their age, to your point. Um, but either way, I was guarding one of them, and the game was tied 10-10. It's straight up. So um, I hit the game winning shot or bucket. I don't know what I did. Vonnie was there. I hit the game winning bucket to win while one of the Lopez twins was guarding me the entire game. But not only that, I had 9 out of the 11 points
yeah,
on
yeah. No, yeah. I remember you scored. You
I
scored. Yeah. Yes.
9 out of 11 on a Lopez twin. Vonnie looked at me, laughed, and said, when they get drafted, we're going to be able to say you scored 9 out of 11 and the game winning bucket in a pickup game against an NBA player. And I just remember laughing and just like that stuck with me. Um, they probably were seniors in high school or freshmen in college. Like I can't remember. It was one or the other.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it was just a funny random tangent that I went on. Sorry. Us Fresno boys, have some nostalgic moments and some players that we have to
That
represent, right?
that
Like if you're from
that was
Fresno, we got to represent you. It doesn't matter what team you're on. I got to represent Jalen. I got to represent Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce. I said it again. Paul George. Got to represent Orlando Robinson. Shout out to the Heat, obviously, for getting him as an undrafted player. So, what were you going to say?
no. I said that was definitely like one of the highlights of our just playing pickup basketball games. Pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, definitely they weren't given 110% for sure, but
Obviously
it's
not.
still, hey,
Kidding me?
a win's a win. Those guys weren't trying to get hurt out there.
True, but they were playing at least 50% because they were pretty raw.
Yeah,
They were pretty raw.
yeah,
Like I remember playing with them when they were even younger, when they were 13. Um, and they were just like 6'6", like toothpicks when they were 13. Like they're 6'6" at age 13, like weighed 100 pounds. Like they were so uncoordinated, it couldn't like they were like when a horse or something like or whatever mammal gives birth to a baby and like how they come out at
yeah,
first like wobbly, but then they could of course eventually walk and run, right? Like humans are the only worthless babies that can't survive like in the wild. Like a horse or a cow or a calf or whatever like can come out and they'll be wobbly for a second, but that's kind of like what they look like.
Hey, did I tell you, just because you went on a tangent, I'm gonna go on a tangent. Did I tell you like 2 weeks ago at the grocery store I ran into Greg Smith? Do you even know who that is?
Yeah,
He
Houston
played.
Rock.
Yeah, he played for Fresno State, and I was getting like milk, and I like looked over to my left. Obviously, he's huge, and I was like looking at his face because yeah, he played for the Rockets for 2 seasons. Like I think in 2015, 16, 17. It was like the era of Harden, Dwight. I think even Jeremy Lin was there. But yeah, I looked at him and I was like, "Are you Greg Smith?" And then he got a big old smirk on his face. Um,
You said hi.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then it was the day free agency started. So then we started talking about free agency. And then I looked at him, I was like, "Dude, can I get a picture?" And I took a picture with him. And then people in the grocery store, I think, were just like hella confused. This like, why is this guy taking a picture with this guy at the grocery store? But he was he was super nice, man.
I'm
Super.
sure they would have guessed though, put two and two together, like, oh, this guy's like 18 feet taller than Vonnegut. Like he must
Yeah,
be a pro basketball player or something.
yeah. He's like 6'11", 7 feet. He's a big dude.
What's he up to? What's he doing in Fresno? Did you ask him?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't ask him. So
Looking at,
I
sure you could find out
yeah,
maybe.
I saw that. I think the last season he played in the league was with the Mavs, like in 2018. And then after that, I think he went like I think he was playing in Mexico, and I think he stopped playing professionally maybe like 2 years ago. But I was about to invite him to our summer or our Saturday league.
Oh yeah,
Be like, hey, bro, you can come out. You got to be on my squad though.
playing with some Armenian dudes. It's not all Armenian dudes, but yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah,
Going back to another Fresno reference, freaking Giannis, his fiance or baby mama, I don't know if they're married or I think they got married, right? I think they just got married. But either way, she's from Fresno too. So apparently, Vonnie, didn't you say like he would go to like local restaurants, River Park, like shopping centers, and just like was hanging
yeah,
out in Fresno during the off season? Like so freaking random. But I'm sure him and Brooke talk about Fresno too, right? Like it's kind of a small world. These connections, like these Fresno
crazy.
folks.
Yeah, yeah. I know people dump on Fresno all the time, but it's pretty crazy how we've had a lot of good talent and a lot of good athletes that have come out of this area. So yeah, there's definitely Brooke. I never really thought Brooke was going to leave the Bucks anyway. I mean, as long as he got compensated like he should have. I mean, he was one of the best defensive players this past season, and he's just such an important part of that Bucks. Just from a personality standpoint, a leadership standpoint, he plays his role. And so as long as the money wasn't, um, an insult in terms of what was offered to him, I think the Bucks kind of had their arm, were strong armed by the Rockets into paying him. And they had to do it too, because ultimately, if they end up losing him, I think it hurts their chances. And down the road, it could have bit them in terms of if Giannis is unhappy, right? Like if Giannis thinks that, hey, the Bucks aren't doing everything that they can to try and put a contending team around him. So I'm happy. There was maybe like a 5% bit of hope in there where I thought the Rockets might prime away, but again, like that's pretty cool. Twin brothers that basically have had almost a 20-year career in the league, and now they get to end their careers again. I mean, they've played with each other before, but to end it together again on the Bucks is pretty cool.
Yeah, isn't it Giannis? Giannis. What did you say?
What's that?
It's Giannis. It's freaking Giannis,
All right,
bro.
sorry.
They've only been in the league for 15 years, not 20. 5 years, they're 35. That's even more impressive. So yeah, if the Lopez twins going back to the tangent of the time I balled up Brooke Lopez, they're 3 years younger than us. Actually, yeah, he was born April 1st. I'm born April 7th. So um, I'm 3 years and 6 days older than him. Uh, so yeah, he was either 18 and I was 21 or 19 and 22.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, super young. Still, that's long enough to where I can't remember the story vividly anymore. But I have a witness here. So, but age 35, dude, that's insane. Like the way he played defensively last year, like, dude, such a good rim protector. Like that's impressive. I didn't
Do
realize
you, do you
how
remember
long the league.
Do you remember those crappy in between years for the Lakers where Brooke Lopez was on there? And the
Yeah,
funny thing is Brooke Lopez, when he was on that Lakers team, was just like they almost had him playing like he didn't even belong in the league. Like he was washed and wasn't good. Because I mean, you we remember how dominant he was with the Nets. I mean, he was an all-star. He was like 20-10. But then by the time he got over to the Lakers, you're like, this guy's horrible. And all they had him doing was just chucking threes, and he wasn't even really shooting the three ball that well. And
Yep.
then yeah, I mean, dude, he's just again, the situation and where you're at and what your role is and the opportunity you get matters so much, man. And he goes back and he just again like at the back nine of his career where he goes to the Bucks just completely revitalized.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm looking at it. He averaged 20 and he wasn't the greatest rebounder. I don't know if he ever averaged 20 and 10. He never averaged 20 and 10. He was close his rookie year, 13 and 8, and then he went to 19 and do you round up 8.6? Let's round up to 9. And then after that, 6 rebounds, 3 rebounds, 7, 6, 7.4, 7.8. But so the last season, though, with the Brooklyn Nets, he started off at New Jersey. I didn't realize he played his first 8 years with them. So
Yeah, he was a beast.
he was great. I mean, yeah, he averaged 20 points, 5 rebounds, crazy. Um, 20 and 5. And then it drastically, to your point, when he went to the Lakers for that 1 year, age 29, 2017, it went down to 13 points per game, which is exactly the same as his rookie season. So that was the lowest he scored in his career, dating back to his rookie year, 13 and 4. Um, let's see his minutes. His minutes went down too. He only played 23 minutes per game, 30 minutes, 33 minutes, 29, 31, 30, like all those years in the past. So his minutes did go down, but then you're right. Like his points haven't gone up drastically since he joined the Bucks. He had 13 again, 12, 12, but then last season he had 16. So not only did his defense step up, but then offensively, um,
Which
he got better at 3 point. He had his best 3 point shooting season of the like his career last year, 37% with the Bucks.
yeah, which I mean, his role changed. Obviously, I mean, for a while there on the Brooklyn, I mean, he was the number one now option. He
Yeah,
comes over to the Lakers, and he's coming off the bench, and he's like their best case scenario. He might be a six man of the year type scenario. But now, I mean, where he's at in his career, coming to the Bucks, is like he's a defensive anchor. He's a veteran. He's got dude. The Lopez twins are such good people, man, and good locker room guys. Like these are guys you want to have on your team. And then again, from the defensive presence. Um, yeah, I mean, what a perfect fit. And you don't need him to score. He's really timely. He's smart with a shot when he needs to be aggressive, and then his three ball at that size is amazing.
that's a bonus. Yeah, 16 points. J. Rue, my boy. You remember my fantasy picking up. I picked up. I feel like I had Drew Holiday so many times, dating back to when he was like on the Sixers, that All Star year, and then I picked him up quite a bit. But you're right, Drew Holiday gets you buckets. Chris Middleton, even though he's been unhealthy for the last couple seasons, but he's going to get you buckets, and Giannis. So anything he gives you above 12 points per game is a bonus. So I love how this podcast has turned into a Brooke Lopez, like Fresno, Jalen Green, like Paul George, just like we're supposed to talk about James Harden, but he's so insignificant, irrelevant, and such a loser that like he's so forgettable that we just like quickly shift into this like Fresno nostalgia conversation, which I'm having way more fun talking about. Even though it's fun to talk shit on James Harden. And just a fun fact for you listeners out there, I think James Harden, his shooting percentages in playoffs have gone down so much exponentially. There's a stat where in Ethan Skolnick from the Five Reasons Sports Network, Miami Heat podcast network, Monik, he mentioned there was a stat. I'm going to butcher it because I can't remember it, but I've said it before in a past video. Um, that in like 40 or so or 50% of all of James Harden's playoff games, which is a ton, right, in his career, he has shot below 30% in like 40 or 50% of all the games. Like, that he's inconsistent. He had those 2 games that he single-handedly won, as you mentioned, in the Boston series while Joel Embiid was hurt. Impressive, right? He had like a game where he had 40 something points. Turn the
40,
clock back. How much?
45.
Whatever. Um, Either way, like he had two other games where he had like 13 and like 7 points and like was like 3 for 20, like just like shooting the team out of the game, just being so inefficient. Like if you can like shoot 10% better, if you could shoot instead of shooting 25% from the field that game, if you shot 35, we would have had a shot to win. And it's not like all on him, obviously, but just like he is an all-star kind of, right? Like he obviously got screwed, right? He like that definitely he should have been an all-star in the East. But yeah, just like that is just insane to me. But like he is like, as I always say in our texts, he's B Rabbit. He's Eminem from 8 Mile before he freaking learns how to rap. Like he's throwing up on himself. He's choking, like historical choker. What are your thoughts
Yeah,
on that?
yeah. He
Sorry.
no the the narrative on him for sure is valid in a sense that you can't be as talented as he is and what he accomplished. And it doesn't take away from what his credentials are and what he's accomplished in the league, but he absolutely does not have that playoff clinching championship caliber defining moment where it would put him in a different tier of legacy. um he's had moments like we just highlighted the Celtics one, right? I mean, I remember the I mean, this is a first round series, but the block that he had on Dortz when they were playing
Yeah.
the Thunder in the bubble playoffs. Like he's had moments like that, right, where he has shown up and done something. And he's also carried the team into these positions by a lot of wins during the regular season. But I agree with you in terms of stats. His style of play doesn't even really translate that well in the playoffs because he is so ball dominant and he does play his ISO game. And come playoff time, when the defenses collapse on you and the double team comes and the whistle gets tight, so he's not getting to the free throw line the same way he was during the regular season. It's just that style can't thrive. And he's had opportunities. Honestly, I mean, 2018, the Rockets should have won a championship. That they if they beat that Warriors team, that was the season that the Cavs were awful. And the Rockets won a franchise record 65 wins. That's the crazy stat where when Capella, Harden, and Chris Paul were all on the court together, we were like 42-3. 42-3 when all three of those guys were on the court at the same time. And we go up 3-2 in that series. And obviously, the worst thing in the world happens, the inevitable, and Chris Paul and his stupid hamstring. So Harden has two chances to win two games, game 6 in the Golden State, and then game 7, worst case scenario, in Houston. Both of those games, Houston had double digit leads, both of them, including the game 6 one. And in the second half, we shit the bed. The
What else
game
happened?
what
What else happened? Do you remember another thing?
Yeah, the
What
other
game was it? Was that game 7 where they missed like a
yeah,
gazillion threes?
27 threes in a row. But there was a lot of again bias. There was a lot of crappy officiating that happened in that game. But take the officiating out of it, it should have never even really come to that. Harden again had another opportunity at a game 7 at home. That was his MVP season, D'Antoni's Coach of the Year season, Eric Gordon's Sixth Man of the Year season, and you lock down the number 1 seed to get that home court advantage. And that's the game that he could have defined his entire career. He wins that game 7. They go on to win the championship, and the whole narrative, nobody can take that crap away from him. And on top of that, they would have beat arguably the best team ever assembled. That's the Durant Warriors with Curry, Clay, and Draymond. And again, Harden has the chance, can't get it done. So that's something he's going to have to live with. And at this point, as Charles Barkley likes to say, even if he does win a ring, he will be a bus rider. He would have been a bus rider this year if they did it with the Sixers because it's Embiid's team. You know what I mean? I don't even. I mean, he's on a good night. He's definitely your second best player. But I think where he's probably at in his career right now is probably he needs to be your third best player.
Yeah, I'm looking at stats. Let's see. James Harden in that game, 12 for 29, 2 for 13 from 3. There we go. He still had 32 points, but because he did take 29 field goals. He had to. I mean, Eric Gordon had to take 22. He had 23 points. Damn, you had Clint Capella had 20 points.
Hey, real quick, tell me what Trevor Ariza did that game.
Good memory. Minus 15, 0 points. 0 for 12 over 9. 0 for 12 over 9. Holy shit. Clint Capella, 9 for 12. PJ Tucker, 5 for 9. PJ Tucker, holy the fact. Oh my God, this is comical. Sorry, dude.
Dude, how
Uh,
do you an NBA player go 0 for 12 in a game?
I don't, dude.
Dude,
PJ Tucker,
by luck, he should have banked one in.
unreal, dude. PJ Tucker, 14 points, 4 steals, 12 rebounds, 5 for 9. Like, that's a huge game for him. Clint Capella, 9 for 10, probably all dunks, 20 and 9. And like, I mean, Gordon wasn't inefficient. He was inefficient as hell. He was 9 for 22, 2 from 12 from 3, 23 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds. Like, still, that's enough. I mean, it sucks that you didn't have Chris Paul, but hey, guess what? As I said in my other video that I made in the past, that when it comes to playoffs, luck is a big factor because of
And
health and injuries. Like, I named many instances, not even really focusing on Miami, but like Kawhi Leonard, like um, Clay and KD, like uh, who else was a big one? Who else did I mention? Kyrie and Kevin Love, like right when they were on the Cavs against the Warriors. Just Chris Paul, like Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry, like Bam Adebayo in the finals. Like there's been so many folks. Chris Middleton, like fuck the Celtics. I hate the Celtics. I don't hate the Bucks. Honestly, I'm not a fan of the Bucks, but I don't even think the Celtics would have beat the Bucks last year if Chris Middleton played. Like they did it without Chris Middleton. They like took them. Did they go to Game 7? It went to at least 6. I can't remember in the second round when the Celtics beat the Bucks when they had no Middleton. Did it go to
this
7?
this last season?
2 seasons ago, I'm saying.
Oh,
That was a
uh,
big issue. That was a big injury for the Bucks. That
yeah,
was like
yeah. I don't remember how far it went.
so. Yeah, I mean, every team deals with injuries, so it sucks. It's a big factor in the playoffs.
Dude, honestly, if like Chris Paul gets hurt in the Cavs series, I think the Rockets still win the championship. That's how freaking ridiculous that injury was. It was like the worst moment. But like I said, Harden had a chance to do it, and they still couldn't. Just too bad.
That's fine. I'm gonna say, which our friends won't agree with me, but I think the Heat in the bubble would have beat the Lakers if Bam didn't miss basically 2 games. He
And
played like
Dragic.
yeah, Bam was playing out of his mind. That was like his breakout.
And
Uh,
Dragic.
and Dragic missed like 4 games. Like and oh yeah, it was Goran Dragic, but Goran Dragic 4 years ago, he was 32, 33.
Yeah, he was
Uh,
balling.
he was the Heat's number one scorer in the playoffs over Tyler Hero, who had a 40-point game against the Celtics. Bam Adebayo, who was having a breakout. Um, he was averaging like 19, 20 points per game, which is like his traditional averages over the past like 3 or 4 years. And over Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler was averaging like 20 something, but like Goran Dragic was averaging like 25 points per game or something crazy, like up until the finals. And so, I mean, it's part of basketball. Like I can't say that's like I'm not as confident as you are saying that if you guys beat the Warriors that you guys would have definitely won the championship. I can't say that definitively, but biasly I would say we would have had a better shot if we had Bam Adebayo because he missed again 1.75 games in the finals out of the 6 that we played, and Goran I think missed like almost all of it. Like he maybe played 1 game, so it was our starting point guard and our starting center. Um, so yeah, injuries suck, dude. But anyway, um, let's end on this. What do you think is going to happen with the Harden saga? Daryl Morey came out saying that, unlike Joe Cronin, who's a bitch, basically saying that we are not trading James Harden unless we get like an all-star caliber type player back or like a really good package. Because he has leverage to a certain degree, right? Like he doesn't need to force a trade to the Clippers. Like he could wait till he gets the best offer. He doesn't owe anything to James Harden. He's been on the team for 1.5 years. I know they have a history, but like it's not like the Dame Lillard situation where he's been on the team for 11 years. He's been loyal. Um, it's different, right? Like he doesn't know James Harden anything, and so Cronin hasn't come out and said we're going to trade Dame to whoever the hell we want. Like he's still saying we'll trade him to Miami, but like they haven't just given us the package we want, right? So, what are your thoughts on Morey saying that he wants an all-star in return, essentially, and what do you think
Well,
is going
yeah,
to happen?
yeah. I mean, of course, this is every GM is going to want to do what they think is best for their franchise, right? And that's why they have their job, and that's why they're in the position they're in. But I also agree that there's the agents and the players, they have the playbook too, and they know how to manipulate the situation and start tightening the screws on the front office and on the GM to be able to make those decisions. What I mean by that is Harden did the same thing when he was in Houston, right? He came into the regular season overweight. He didn't participate in training camp. Once he came in and he saw that there was no hope, he played a couple of games, and then he flat out went into the press conference after our game against the Blazers and said, "We can't win with this team." Or remember, and it basically that after that they basically shut him down. They're like, "Dude, he went out there and in the media was just putting his teammates and the team on blast," and that's what like expedited this trade and getting him out of there. Um, Ben Simmons, when he was over there with Morey, I think he was a little bit more quiet, right? His personality type. Like, I don't think Ben Simmons gives a shit about basketball. Like, that guy has no urgency to want to play. So he's different. He's just getting paid and he's just sitting. But Harden's not that type. Like, Harden's a hooper. Like, he wants to play basketball. So Harden, I think, is willing, and that's the funny thing. You just said it. I think today everybody's speculating about the meaning behind it. But I think on one of his Instagram stories or whatever, Harden put like, "I've been too comfortable for too long and I need to get
I saw that.
uncomfortable." And so people are reading into that in terms of like, what does that mean? So I'm sure, just like I'm saying, Dame is inevitably going to end up on the Heat. I think it sounds like that relationship can't be mended, and I think Harden's going to be on his way out at some point. But I think wherever he goes, it's not going to be a better situation than what he has in Philadelphia. That is in regard to winning. And then even in terms of the contract, I think, like I said, whether he gets traded to the Clippers or wherever he ends up going, he's not going to get any kind of significant. I mean, the contract that he just opted into, which I think is 35 million for this season, I don't think he's going to get anything higher than that in any of his future years, regardless of what contract he signs. So
I agree with that, and I think I saw the whole thing on Instagram. Maybe he means that he hasn't been uncomfortable in a while, as in like 2 or 3 years when he became fat and everybody thought he was wearing a fat suit because then the following that was during the off season, remember? And then he came into the season looking way more slim. So maybe he wants to get uncomfortable again by just eating Carl's Jr. and Jack in the Box and getting fat again and being bloated. I think is what he means by he hasn't been uncomfortable in a while because he's been trying to be healthier, I guess, right? Because he thought he had an opportunity to win a championship with Embiid, but now he's like, let me just get fat and get paid again. I think that's what he means. So I
maybe
don't know.
maybe he's a little jealous of Zion.
Yeah, maybe. What is it? He wants to go to the freaking Clippers. What is it? What's uncomfortable about that? Like in theory, that's like 4 All-Stars.
No, dude, I take that in the context of like, I think him saying uncomfortable is like, I think he's going to make it uncomfortable.
Oh, for the Sixers.
Yeah, for the Sixers to force himself out of there because, like you said, Morey definitely is saying he's going to his playbook and saying like, we're not doing the trade unless it's right for us, blah blah blah, which he held on, and that was actually accurate with Simmons because he held out until he got the Harden deal done. But I think Harden's not going to sit around for a full season of you know not playing before he gets traded. And Harden ultimately,
Sure.
I don't think Harden is. I think Harden knows the Clippers are a good team, but if Harden goes to the Clippers, like, I'm not picking them as a favorite to win the finals. I at best case scenario, I would say they're like a 4 or a 5 seed, and then they probably get bounced in the second round with that roster still.
Yep.
Too many people. Like, even I'm saying that even if all of those guys are healthy, like if they go into the playoffs with Kawhi, Paul George, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook, and they're all healthy and they're all playing their best basketball, they're still not winning a title.
No, I don't.
They're not
They
winning a
don't
title.
fit. Those
So
puzzle pieces don't fit together.
correct. He's not going over there to win a title because if he wanted to win a title, his odds are better staying on the Sixers. I think what it is that he he gets to go to LA, and I think he likes Russ, and I think it's just about the lifestyle. I think Harden wants to play basketball, and I think Harden wants to be where he wants to be and be happy. and so he wants to be in a city where where he can party and hang out with his friends and the rappers and go to the clubs and all his. I just saw hanging out with what's his name, Rick Rubin, and going to parties, and that's where he's at, man. That's where he's always been, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying he's free to live his own life and have fun, but you can't have all of it, and you can't also be like, oh, I want to win and I'm committed to the game and doing all this when you're not putting in the effort. Like I would said for the Rockets for a little bit, the narrative, I wanted him to come to the Rockets, like I said 6 to 8 months ago. But then once I saw, the Van Fleet thing made much more sense to me, man. These guys, they needed a mentor where somebody, Van Fleet's won a title with the Raptors. He's definitely a good off the court guy. And these guys, the young guys like the Jalen Greens, they need good mentorship, man. Not, I don't need them to know where all the best strip clubs are at. I would rather have them see the family values, uh, you know, the community work, which Harden does the community work, but I'm saying in terms of like starting a family, having kids, spending your extracurricular time, like the family stuff, I think is better long term than it is just hanging out at the strip clubs and going to the concerts and doing that up until you're 40 years old, just because you're rich and you got the money and you want to live that lifestyle. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm, I'm ultimately happy.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I still think he's a loser because he does it during the season and doesn't care for his body and doesn't want to win. Jimmy Butler likes to have fun. You see, he's a fun personality. He's out there playing dominoes, drinking Cuban coffees, like
He's
in
having
South Beach. He's traveling. He's in Europe. He's going to China right now for his promotional tour. He's dating Shakira now. Like he's got his own coffee company. Like he's living life too. He's on Michelob Ultra commercials. Like he talks about drinking wine. I think the Heat lost to one of the games against the Celtics after we almost blew a freaking 3-0 lead. Like, thank God we didn't blow the first 3-0 lead in NBA history. That would have been sad. I was basically saying those two as a joke. I will, if we win if we win game 7 against the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, I'll be okay being swept by the Nuggets, which we almost did. I was like, if it means not losing a 3-0 lead to the Celtics especially, then I would take a sweep in the next round. But I think one of the games after like losing the second one in a row, like when Jalen and Marcus were like, "Don't let us get one," and don't let us get two. I think like Jamie's like, "I'm gonna go back to my room and like I'm gonna drink some wine, like a couple glasses of wine." Like there's nothing wrong with that, but like Harden's like, if that was Harden, he's like, I'm gonna go to the strip club. I'm gonna drink a bottle of freaking vodka. Like he's not taking it easy like that. And I don't know,
well, yeah,
his mindset's
I think
not right.
I think he did it even in between the Nets and the Celtics series. They were saying like Doc. He asked Doc, and Doc said, "Yeah, you can go to Vegas." But I don't know, man. Everybody's different. I mean, Harden's been who he's been this entire time. It's not like this is anything new. He was doing this stuff to when he was in Houston.
Yeah,
Um,
but he's not a
and
winner.
I mean, like I said, his legacy is what it is. He's still a Hall of Famer. He's still one of the NBA greatest 75. But I think his work ethic a little bit, and some of the criticisms that Kobe said, you know what I mean? Like in terms of his style of play, like is ultimately not winning basketball. Like I think all that stuff is valid. And I think if he bought into that stuff sooner in his career, I think his accomplishments could have been that much higher. There's no reason why somebody of his caliber, especially where he was operating from a talent standpoint from in his Harden era, that he didn't have one title. I mean, he was the MVP outright one season, and then he finished like second 3 other times. I mean, he was pure domination offensively in terms of what he was doing. I mean, the unguardable tour. I mean, it was unreal. And
Yep,
so it's just sad, but he should have had it. He's gonna be on that list with Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, Reggie Miller, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, John Stockton. The greats that never won a ring. That's gonna be him. And like I said, unless he ends up the bus rider where he's like 38 years old and somehow he's like on the bench for the Warriors or some team that ends up winning it. But
doesn't count.
yeah,
Still not going to count. What he wants to get the Juwan Howard ring, basically the Alonzo Mourning ring. Um, but I don't want to ever compare Alonzo Mourning to James Harden, character wise or perseverance wise or any of that, right? Or professionalism. But yeah, he might be able to win one as a second best player, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, who knows, depending on what age it may be. So I hope Jimmy Butler's not on that list, but I don't think he's going to be on that list because it's
Yeah.
almost Dame time. We'll end it on that note. This is way longer than we expected it, as usual. So that's what happens when friends are just chatting, playing basketball, and it doesn't even feel like we're recording ourselves because we probably have the same exact conversation, but not as formal, right? Um, Thanks again for joining. Really appreciate your time again, Bonnie. It was fun talking. 50 minutes. Jesus Christ, way too long. Yeah. So this episode was mostly about Harden. It was supposed to be mostly about Harden, and it turned into Fresno Hoopers, which was fun. So I guess this is the Harden slash Fresno NBA player podcast episode. So
Just a shout out to Nick Irvin, Fresno State legend.
oh god, and Dominic Young, point shaving legend. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Take care.